With the World Cup now a distant memory, our attentions have all turned to the transfer market, which shuts earlier than ever this year, with the window slamming shut just before the season kicks off. With that in mind, let's look at one player each Premier League club should sell, and if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button. Arsenal Lucas Perez. The Spaniard's Arsenal career has been an absolute bust, and Lucas Perez just needs to get himself as far away from North London as possible. Signed 2 seasons ago, chances were few and far between from Arsene Wenger, who loaned him back to Deportivo last season, and it seems as though Emery wants rid of the forward, with Perez's name appearing on a list of players the new manager will listen to offers for. Bournemouth Emerson Hyndman. The midfielder has barely played for the Cherries since joining in 2016, so I think it's about time that Eddie Howe cut his ties with the American and sent him on his merry way. Still just 22, Hyndman was highly rated at Fulham, but has just 4 appearances at Bournemouth to his name, only one of which that came in the Premier League. With Bournemouth eyeing up some big money names, Hyndman is more than surplus to requirements, despite having impressed during pre-season so far. Brighton Sam Baldock. An important player in Brighton's promotion campaign, there was no room for Sam Baldock last season, who made just 2 league appearances for Chris Hughton's side that achieved survival. At 29, Baldock is still a solid option for a lot of championship clubs, but will need to leave the Amex as he slides down the pecking order on the south coast. Burnley NAHKI Wells. Let's be honest, why on earth did Burnley even sign NAHKI Wells last summer? The forward failed to find the net in 9 Premier League appearances last season, none of which I can remember. Another striker more suited to the Championship. Is NAHKI Wells going to be Sean Dyche's Europa League hero? I don't think so maybe he should go elsewhere in search of first team minutes. Cardiff City Lee Camp. The experienced stopper moved to Sunderland in January as the Black Cats slumped towards League One, and Lee Camp was powerless to stop the decline and at times did his best to accelerate it, joining the long list of struggling Sunderland keepers last season. He's now back with Cardiff, who were busy securing promotion, but there can be no place for Lee Camp in the Premier League, especially with the Welsh side also adding Alex Smithies to their squad. Chelsea Danny Drinkwater. I mean, what a waste of money this was, and it was all off the back of one good season. Chelsea spent £35 million on the midfielder, who looked great when N'Golo Kanté could do his running and all he had to do was clip balls in behind for Jimmy Vardy to run onto, but that hasn't happened at Stamford Bridge, despite the presence of a tiny little Frenchman. Drinkwater just doesn't look like a Chelsea player, and will be further down the pecking order now following the mega money arrival of Jorginho from Napoli. They won't get £35 million for him, but maybe Chelsea should look to get Danny Drinkwater off the books. Crystal Palace Johnny Williams. It seems like Johnny Williams has been a Palace player forever, but has shown zero signs of being able to cut at a Premier League level. Another player on loan at Sunderland last season, Williams did nothing to convince people that he was above a second tier relegation battle, which suggests the Eagles need to get shot of the diminutive Welshman, who was actually part of Wales' Euro 2016 semi-final squad. Everton Yannick Bolasie. The Toffees finally have some money to spend after years of bargain hunting, and one of their first mega money signings was Yannick Bolasie, who cost an astonishing £25 million in 2016. Was he worth that much? No, but it was proof that Everton can spend big money, albeit maybe not on the right players. The winger has been blighted by injury, and it now seems the right time to move on from Everton, having never really shown why he cost so much money. As Marco Silva looks to get the Toffees back on track, he might want to do it without Yannick Bolasie. Fulham Cauley Woodrow. A blast from the past, it's pretty surprising that Cauley Woodrow is still a Fulham player, and if he isn't sold this year, he'll be off next summer when his contract expires. But if the Cottagers want to make some money out of the 23-year-old, then they need to sell this summer, as there's no way Cauley Woodrow has enough to deserve a crack at the Premier League again. Woodrow has struggled ever since he scored his one and only Premier League goal for the club, and will likely be heading for the exit door again this summer, maybe on another loan. Huddersfield Town Michael Hefele. A key player when Huddersfield were promoted to the Premier League, Michael Hefele barely featured in the top flight, as David Wagner's side achieved the unthinkable and survived. Considering they did it without their curly-haired German at the back, it maybe suggests he surplus the requirements at the John Smith Stadium, and the Terriers should think about moving on a player who only has 3 top-flight appearances in his entire career, 2 of which came last season. Leicester City Islam Slimani. A marquee signing that didn't work out, Islam Slimani arrived for huge money following the Foxes title win, proving they were able to sign big-name players, but sadly, Slimani never proved his worth in a Leicester shirt. The Algerian was loaned to Newcastle in the second half of last season, where he spent most of his time either injured and then suspended, which put the Magpies off a permanent move for the striker. Will Leicester get the £28 million back for Slimani? Christ no, they'd be lucky to get 2. Liverpool Loris Karius. I actually feel bad for including him in this because he's got so much grief ever since the Champions League final, but KARIUS might need to leave Liverpool for the good of his career. His errors cost the Reds in the final against Real Madrid, and since then the man's confidence has been shattered, struggling in friendlies against Tranmere and then Borussia Dortmund. With the arrival of Alisson from Roma, KARIUS is no longer Liverpool's number one, and the only way the 25-year-old can get his career back on track might be leaving Anfield just 2 years after arriving. Manchester City, Joe Hart. Back-to-back goalkeepers, Joe Hart is desperate to end his Pep Guardiola nightmare. Ever since the Spaniard arrived at the Etihad, Joe Hart's career has been in a downward spiral. He was dropped as Man City number 1, sent to Torino for an underwhelming loan spell, returned to the Premier League for a temporary spell at West Ham where he couldn't nail down the number 1 spot, and ultimately missed out on the World Cup. Hart's reputation is in tatters, and a permanent move needs to happen this summer for the head and shoulders enthusiast. Manchester United, Matteo Darmian. There were a few Manchester United players who we could have picked here, but we've decided to go with Matteo Darmian, who appears to have a grand total of 0 supporters at Old Trafford. The Italian came highly rated but has been pretty abysmal in a Manchester United shirt, and he is one of the players Jose Mourinho is trying to offload this summer. The fullback made 8 Premier League appearances last season for the Red Devils, and fans will be hoping that number is 8 less this time out. Newcastle United, Alexander Mitrovic. So Rafa Benitez has no money to spend this summer, so needs to sell players in order to raise funds, and one of the players he's looking to move on is Serbian forward Alexander Mitrovic. Mitro is a fan favourite in the northeast, but doesn't tickle Rafa Benitez's pickle, who sent him to Fulham last season where the strike went on the best run of his career. The Magpies are hoping to send Mitrovic back to Fulham for 20 million quid, which will still probably end up in Mike Ashley's back pocket. Southampton, Fraser Forster. Another goalkeeper whose wheels seem to have fallen off, it seems like it's time for Fraser Forster to leave St Mary's. After some poor performances, he was dropped last season for the much more impressive Alex McCarthy, and this summer the Saints have signed the highly rated Angus Gunn from Manchester City, who had a strong season at Norwich last time out. Forster now appears to be third choice at St Mary's, which is bleak reading for a man who a year ago might have considered himself to have an outside chance of going to the World Cup. Oh, how things change. Tottenham, Vincent Janssen. There are 2 things that Tottenham can't do: win trophies and find a backup for Harry Kane. 2 years ago they signed Vincent Janssen to fulfil the role, and he failed massively. Merely a penalty merchant, the Dutch striker cost £17 million, but his Spurs career ended after a year basically, going on loan to Fenerbahce last season and failing once again. Now he's back at Tottenham, who will want to sell the 24-year-old, as well as their other Harry Kane backup Fernando Llorente, who also failed in the understudy role. Watford, Stefano OKAKA. Other than his season at Anderlecht, Stefano OKAKA has never hit double figures in a league season, and since joining the Hornets in 2016, the Italian has managed just 5 Premier League goals, a grim tally for the 28-year-old who sits behind Troy Deeney and Andre Gray in the pecking order. Watford need a prolific goal scorer, and if they get one this summer, then Stefano OKAKA will be pushed further out the door. West Ham United, Sam BYRAM. A Leeds Academy graduate, Sam BYRAM's career has gone nowhere since he left Ellen Road for the Premier League, and it looks like it might be time for the right back to drop back down to the Championship. With the arrival of Ryan Fredericks, BYRAM surely can't feature in Manuel Pellegrini's plans, especially with Pablo Zabaleta also on the books, so it's time to call it a day for BYRAM, who is reportedly heading to Nottingham Forest. And finally Wolves, Danny Batth. He might be the club captain, but Danny Batth surely has no future at Wolves. The bloke wasn't even a guaranteed starter last season in the Championship. A decent defender for the second tier, Wolves have huge ambitions now with their wealth, and can attract players who are much better than Danny Batth, so the skipper should be on his way out of the club this summer. It's either that or he'll get to play with João Moutinho, which doesn't really sound fair, does it? So that's one player each Premier League club should look to sell. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and give us a like and a share. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.